Hi everybody, I'm Clare Hodder from RightsZone. I also run the Rights Together networking group, and we've got a stand outside, so do come and say hello if you're interested in finding out more about either of those things. This is Adele Parker from Taylor & Francis, and today we're going to hopefully take you through a bit of a practical guide to licensing content for AI. Before we get started, we've just got a few disclaimers. Firstly, our opinions are our own, they're not those of our employers. And to prepare for today, we've talked to a few different people on an anonymous basis about their experiences of AI licensing. So what we're sharing today isn't specific to any one business or experience, but it's the accumulation of those things. We can't be very specific due to anti-competitive behaviour regulation, but we will share sort of more general things that rights professionals might want to consider when they're embarking on AI licensing. And when it comes to AI licensing, it's very much an uncertain landscape. There aren't any precedents, there's no received wisdom to draw on. And the landscape is changing rapidly. There are new players entering the market, licensing models are evolving, and obviously the legal situation is in flux too. Non-disclosure agreements are common in AI licensing deals, which means information tends not to become public. So we're having to forge a new path, somewhat in the dark and with an uncertain destination. In today's session, we're going to pose a series of 5 questions that we hope will start to shed some light on this murky area, so that if you're contemplating your own AI licensing journey, you can think about what direction you might want to head in.
So the first question today is, are you ready to license? And this is all about getting your ducks in a row. So as with any traditional licensing, be confident about the rights you hold that you want to license. So as rights professionals, we're all expert at checking rights. That's what we do every day. But in the AI context, it might mean that we have to do this at scale and at speed. So in terms of getting your ducks in a row, take a deep dive. So use that archive and keep your rights team at the heart of this exercise. Locate the head contracts you need and the relevant contracts that you're negotiating rights for. If you have a deep backlist, then consider the different templates and the historic context, and check the clauses too, plus the author's intentions at the time of signing that contract. Obviously, an author that signed a contract 15 years ago didn't have this in scope, whereas an author who signed a contract yesterday would have. In terms of your inventory, maintain a clean inventory of rights. So know what rights you hold and what rights you don't hold. Do any of your contracts have carve-outs, for example? Are the clauses you intend to invoke relevant? Be confident that your inventory is robust and double-check things like language rights and formats that are available to license. Think about where you host this inventory as well. Is it somewhere central that people can access within the company so that you're not constantly reinventing the wheel? Assess continually. So this is a live situation. Rights statuses can change with opt-out requests, addenda issued by editorial, reversions, expiries. So the AI landscape is exceptionally fluid. Use cases change and develop rapidly, so keep assessing that list. Ring fence and replace any titles for which you're unsure of the right status, and particularly when contracts are missing. Don't make any assumptions and withhold any titles until the full research has been undertaken. You can always offer alternative titles if you need more data or word count. So thinking beyond the rights, let's look at other considerations such as how you're going to deliver the content. So what files does the client expect you to deliver? Format can often matter. Do you hold these files and are they easily retrievable, or are they held by third parties? What formats do you have and do these need converting? Again, this will require time, resource, as well as budget if you do. How quickly and efficiently can you deliver the files? For some clients, time is the essence, they're working against the clock. And just consider that if you can't get the content to them quickly, that then they might walk away from the deal. Do you have the required resources? So investing in AI licensing will need people, time and bandwidth across many contributory roles in your organisation. So if you're a small organisation, you might need to onboard some freelance staff, for example, and also think about consulting legal counsel externally if you don't have that expertise in-house. But most of all, I think collaboration is key, and as the slide suggests, we all need to pull together on this. Consider creating a cross-departmental team where you can pool your expertise. You might need people from rights, legal, sales, production, technology, editorial, royalties. All will have different experience and expertise. And if you share this expertise, you can deliver a successful outcome.
So our second question is, how exactly is your content going to be used? A clear understanding of exactly what your prospective partner wants to do with your stuff enables you to think about the guardrails and the revenue models that are going to be appropriate. So I'm going to attempt a very non-technical explanation of some of the different models. So with apologies to the AI experts in the room, this is a very much a simplified version. So model training, which is something that happens, for example, to train things like large language models or LLMs, that kind of training is known as training a foundational model, and it requires a very large volume of high quality raw data. And in the case of an LLM, that obviously means a lot of text. And the training at this point, pre-training as it's sometimes known, is about finding patterns or structures in the data, so things like finding the next word in a sentence. And that's sometimes called unsupervised training because the model is in a sort of self-learning mode. And models can be trained multiple times with the same data set. And then there's fine-tuning or supervised training, which is when the model is then optimized to manage a specific task, perhaps to follow instructions or to respond to specific requests. Or it might be trained on specific data, for example, legal or medical content for a particular purpose. And this kind of training uses smaller, more curated data sets and different to those that we used in the pre-training stage. Different data sets can also be used for model evaluation, so comparing the trained data against a control data set to ensure that the model performs as it is expected to. And then we have RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, which enhances the power of something like a large language model by integrating a new data set that the LLM can then draw data from. And this is sometimes referred to as a walled garden. Essentially, you're putting a wall around the data, and it's only data within that walled garden that the LLM looks at to give a response. And RAG is commonly used at an enterprise level to to enable employees to query AI on data held by the organisation to gain sort of business intelligence and enhance productivity. And we had an interesting example of that which came up in our research, where one publisher was approached by a script writing team for a historical film based on jazz musicians in 1920s America. And to ensure that the writing was historically accurate, they approached the publisher to ask them for a license for a series of biographies on that same period. And the script writers can then use that tool to assess their accuracy and answer questions as they're writing the script. And there are public-facing versions of RAG models too, where the users of a system are served results based on the AI's retrieval information from a ring-fenced data set. So, for example, customer care chatbots will draw on that kind of data to query company information to resolve customer questions. And an example of published content being used to support that kind of use case is a company called Buoy Health, or if you're British, Boy Health, which came out of Harvard Medical School. It's an AI tool where a patient can enter their symptoms and get signposted to the appropriate healthcare provider. And the idea behind it is it's better than people just Googling their symptoms. And apparently they used 18,000 clinical papers to train their AI model to do that. So over to you.
Thank you. So this slide's about understanding the use case. So make sure you understand the use case from the very start. Ask lots of questions, ask for demos, anything that aids your understanding. Some AI use cases can be complex and technical, but don't let that distract you from the basic facts. What happens to your content in this specific scenario? So what are you licensing exactly? Is it for LLM training? Will there be outputs? Does it involve all of your backlist content, or does it involve backlist and front list? Is it full data set or subsets? Will updates or new additions be required, or can this be subject to a future agreement? And if so, can you build a pipeline? So all of these things need to be considered. Trust and transparency is important and essential from the get-go. So aim to work with trusted partners, and many of our existing customers are already applying AI to their business landscapes and to their platforms. So why not start with these trusted partners? Consider some pilots or some short-term contracts just to test the water and to grow your own understanding of how the data might be used. And how will you ensure transparency in terms of content being used, created, surfaced, attributed? Existing customers will have a track record of delivering this kind of data to you. So again, that's a great base to build from. And if not, ensure you have adequate clauses in your contracts so that this does happen. In terms of tracking, what mechanisms are in place to track usage of the licensed content? Will you be provided with usage logs as proof of how the content is being utilised? That can then become your research data if you have that. Are there clear definitions of permitted and prohibited uses? It's key to be clear about what you actually want to allow a third party to do, and also what you don't want them to do with your content, so be explicit from the start. In terms of authors, are you confident you can match the rights you're licensing to those that you acquired? In other words, are the use cases compatible with your acquisition agreements? This is vital. In terms of post-termination, can you remove the content at the end of the license period, strip it out? Consider the implications to your business if you cannot, and also the value of a limited period license as opposed to a perpetual agreement. In terms of license terms themselves, create some strong guardrails to protect yours and your author's content, and set your own rules. So what are you happy to do at this stage of AI development, and what are you not? No one knows what the future holds, but we're sure that AI will continue to play an increasingly bigger role in our everyday lives. And so in many ways we need to future-proof. So that means revisiting the original negotiation if that company wants to do something else with your content further down the line, make that clear from the start. If they want to change any of the guardrails or use your content for other means, then they need to come back to you and request that separately. So create your own certainties in an uncertain landscape. Decide as a business where your lines in the sand are drawn for now.
Okay, so what's your content worth? And the short answer is we can't tell you, because it would be anti-competitive, and also because we couldn't tell you even if we wanted to, because your content has a unique character and the value of it to different licensing partners will vary considerably. As it says there, value is in the eye of the beholder. When you're establishing what a license is worth, you might want to consider what you'd need to be compensated for. Sorry, I can't say it. What you need to be compensated for, given the risks that might arise. So, for example, in the case of entering into a model training license, is there a risk that outputs from that training could end up cannibalising your sales or other revenue streams? And what would the impact of that be? What's the likelihood of that happening? And to a certain extent, you can try to mitigate some of those things through your licensing terms, but you can also factor that in to your price. Your licensing partner will also be factoring in risk to their valuation of a potential deal as well. So we know that some model training has taken place on large data sets of unlicensed content. In those cases, the licensee might well decide to offer you an enhanced fee to cover any retrospective licensing that they perhaps should have asked for previously to mitigate the risk of you suing them. So what's your negotiating position? If you're a large business with deep pockets, then the risk of your suing for infringement might be high enough to drive up the value of your content when you're negotiating, especially with big tech companies. If you're not in that position, then perhaps your negotiating position isn't as strong. But if you're a small publisher and you've got unique, high-quality content in a niche area, then maybe you do have a much stronger negotiating position when it comes to licensing things like fine-tuning or for RAG products that are aimed at a particular market. And you'll build up a sense of what's normal over time. In the meantime, your past licensing experience will guide you. And I think it's worth saying, bear in mind you've got organisational experience to drive, to draw on as well. As Adele said earlier, cross-departmental teams getting buy-in and input from all of the different people who might have different perspectives from you is really useful in this. But I think it's worth saying that because this is so new, you're not going to get it right every time. You might lose some deals. And I think that's okay because that's part of the process of building experience, and that will obviously help inform future licensing agreements.
So looking at the pricing framework, with traditional licensing pricing mechanisms out of the porthole, sticking to the watery theme, we need to think about dynamic pricing. So we need to create a new and appropriate pricing framework for the AI licensing market which responds to current market conditions. So think smoothie. So many rights professionals are used to thinking of single titles, single ISBNs, and their value and inherent value of being a specific author or having a specific subject matter. So, for example, if you're licensing for audio or translation, you'll be talking about single individual titles. With many AI licensing scenarios, tech companies will be shopping around for bulk data. They might not want one punnet of strawberries. They might not care about the orchard or the grower, for example. They might care more about the variety of content you can give them, so set out your stall. What variety do you have to offer? And do you want to apply different pricing to those different content or product channels? You might want to consider economies of scale as well and encourage licensees to purchase more that way. Or you could actually prefer to restrict the number of titles you're going to license, so the choice is yours. Decoy pricing might be another useful tool. So can you offer 2 or 3 alternative packages, which makes one of those options more appealing? If AI companies are not seeking specific titles, then bundling options then they open up for you. Will your content be part of an external commercial offering, or will it be used internally only? So I'm thinking back to Clare's walled garden here. Is it for internal research purposes, or is it being sold to third parties? So what is the value of your content to that company, whether it's being used internally or externally? And who is the end user in any given situation? You must know that. Think also about your proposition or positioning in the market. So your go-to-market story may need to change now. Do you have unique data to offer? Do you have competitors? Are your competitors licensing to AI? How do you ensure your data holds its value in a market that doesn't use the usual publishing yardsticks to measure value? The value to an AI or tech company may be in the brand, but it might also be in specific data sets you hold or the format you publish in, cutting-edge journal content, for example. And on author shares, can you be clear on which clause you will apply when paying your authors? What do you need to do in order to pay your authors? And are your royalty systems set up to pay authors based on the data you receive from AI companies or AI usage?
So question 4, why are we doing this? I think it's a really important question to be clear on. Why are you doing any of this? Why are you getting involved in AI licensing at all? There are risks, loss of control, fear of the unknown, sinking the boat perhaps. So why on earth would you want to license your content to an AI company? But actually we think there are a few good reasons. And firstly, for your organisation, you can only shape the conversation if you're part of it. Dipping your toe in the water to test what works does enable you to do that. Having conversations with those tech partners to enable them to understand how publishing works and sharing your concerns with them will help each party to find mutually satisfactory solutions. Both sides are new to this and you can teach each other. And by entering into licensing arrangements, you're building an invaluable bank of experience. Learning about the technical process involved, learning about the different kinds of licensing opportunities, and learning about the risks you're exposing your content to. You can start small, iterate, test, and refine your approach as your experience grows. And licensing enables you to work out who the people are that you want to work with in the space. It allows you to build relationships for the long term, as Adele mentioned earlier, grounded in trust, and that makes strategic sense for your organisation. Licensing helps us to gain some control. We all know that our content is being used for AI purposes, whether we like it or not. And with licensing agreements in place, we can at least ensure it's happening on terms that mitigate our concerns as far as possible. And of course, licensing does open up new revenue streams. Some tech companies are actually prepared to pay for rather than steal your content.
So we're also doing this for our authors. As publishers, we are custodians of our authors and other creators' content, and we want to bring them on this journey with us. Getting good terms is important to both parties, but also so is clarity and transparency around usage. So are you able to tell authors how their content is being used and where? By embracing AI licensing, you're offering to safeguard content from unauthorised access or use, which is reassuring for the content creators too. We're helping authors to future-proof their work. We're also creating new opportunities for authors to bring their work to new audiences. And again, Clare's example of the author of the Jazz Biography series, who ultimately became a paid advisor for the film company that they licensed to, is a perfect example of that.
Okay, so there's also a bit of a sense that that licensing kind of has a ripple effect beyond our own organisations and those of our authors. We can ensure that AI tools are built and trained on high quality and authentic data, not just what's been scraped off the internet. There's a lot of good things in the world happening as a result of AI. And one lovely example is the Jane Goodall Institute, who have been able to make huge strides forward in their conservation efforts by enabling local communities and researchers to collectively use AI technology to assist with all sorts of things, from digitising research data to identifying new species of primate and how they interact with one another, to monitoring forest health and keeping track of illegal activities as well. And so licensing our high quality published content to train models that underpin initiatives like that is really important in supporting good work that's happening everywhere. And there is an argument that we should be rewarding the people trying to do the right thing and coming to us for a license instead of stealing our work. And maybe that's a good reason that's a good reason to think about licensing. Licensing enables us to evidence that there is a healthy and functioning licensing market. It gives us leverage to push back against claims that copyright is unclear or too difficult to navigate. Legislative change is not required if there's no market failure to correct. But even with all of these reasons to license, it's also okay if you decide not to do it. Not every prospective licensing partner or every opportunity is going to be right for you. You might not want to license all your content, and you might not want to license for every use case. Everybody's AI licensing journey will be different.
So question 5 is, how do we get started? So finding the right partners is essential, and identifying reliable partners to work with. As we've spoken about before, we start with the people we're already in contact with. Existing partners and trusted platforms are often the safe route to moving into this area. As they develop their AI tools, you can learn alongside them. Use middle people, for example, aggregators, and we'll take a look at some of these companies offering services on the next slide. Go where the tech people are. There's plenty of industry events beyond the standard publishing ones, which we all enjoy. Think about attending AI summits, for example. There's many events springing up across Europe and actually globally at the moment, which we can engage with. And if you are small, think about teaming up. Consider consortium and collective licensing, because we can be stronger together as a community. So we're just going to whisk through some useful resources here as well. So there's some intermediaries such as Red Pine, Human Native, Syndicate and Rayleigh AI, to name a few. These are just a smashing of examples of people that are currently active in this market, and there's plenty more out there, but very worthwhile having a look at their sites. Advice and information available to publishers is growing rapidly, so use trusted sources like the CLA, BISG, PA and IPG. The PA established a dedicated AI task force in 2023 to support publishers. There's lots of great stuff going on. There's also some fantastic newsletters as well, so the Content Licensing Brief, Rights Tech Extra, George Walkley, Outside Context, and Charting AI with Graham Lovelace. And I think George and Graham are attending today, so if you're in the room, we're going to give you a wave. Thank you. So the message is to keep exploring, keep talking, and learning from one another.
Okay, thank you for joining us on our AI licensing journey through winding rivers and turbulent waters. We can't say how it's all going to develop in the future or what the implications for licensing are going to be. There is so much uncertainty that it is really easy to get overwhelmed by it. But I do hope that we've managed to persuade you to just have a think about dipping your toe in the water if you haven't already. Collaborate with your wider team so you can map out the things you're comfortable with and the things that you're not, drawing those lines in the sand and understanding where you can afford to negotiate so that when you do enter into licenses, it's on acceptable terms. As we've said, each organisation's journey is going to look different. The nature of the content you're licensing, the sorts of organisations that want to use it, and the relative risks of licensing or not in each case. But actually, that's not very different to any other kinds of licensing that we do. And in this very uncertain world, I think that's perhaps something that we can hold on to. We can use our rights and licensing experience to be our North Star as we navigate our AI licensing journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.